What if every time you made a decision, an alternate universe formed where the opposite decision was made? Yeah, let that sink in for a second. Every time you choose something, anything, there's another universe where you chose the opposite. You're standing in line at a coffee shop, trying to decide between a caramel macchiato or a plain black coffee. You pick the macchiato, but in another universe there's a version of you sipping on the black coffee. Maybe you choose to take the bus today, and in another reality you decided to drive. Or maybe it's a bigger decision, like whether to stay in that relationship or walk away. One decision, one universe. The implications of this would be wild. Imagine waking up every day with the knowledge that you've just sent another version of yourself off to live out a completely different life. You pick a job and bam, there's an alternate universe where you're working a completely different career. You decide to go on that trip and somewhere else you're sitting at home wondering what might have been. Every tiny moment, every little decision, creates an infinite web of realities, each one splintering off into a new life, a new path. The mind boggles just thinking about it. And the more you think about it, the more you realize that the alternate universes wouldn't just be subtle variations of your own life. They would be entirely different narratives, full of people, circumstances, and outcomes that you never even considered. You picked the safe option today, but in another universe you were bold. You stayed up late and said something you didn't mean, and now in another world your relationships have shifted because of it. It's a cosmic game of what ifs, but with real, tangible consequences. Now you might be wondering, does this mean you'd be aware of these alternate universes? Do you get to peek into them? Or is it more like a cosmic what if that you just have to live with, knowing they exist but never being able to access them? Let's say you don't get to see what's happening in the other worlds, at least not directly. Every decision you make might seem insignificant in the moment, but if you could somehow glimpse those other universes, it'd be mind-blowing. You could see all the what could have been versions of yourself, the road not taken in every sense. What if the relationship you ended up leaving was the one that would have made you happiest? What if that one career change you were too scared to make led to you being wildly successful? What if you took that trip you chickened out of, and it ended up changing your entire perspective on life? Suddenly, you realize that every little choice you make isn't just a choice for you. It's a choice for a whole other universe where you're living out the opposite life. But imagine the emotional chaos of it. You could never really be sure of whether you made the right decision. Every time you make a choice, there's this nagging question in the back of your mind. What if the other version of me is living a better life right now? You could spend your days obsessing over it, mentally hopping between universes, trying to figure out which one is the best. It would be like running two parallel lives in your head, never being able to fully commit to either one. And what if you could somehow feel the consequences of the alternate decisions? What if every time you made a choice, you felt a tug in your mind or soul? A faint echo of the life you didn't choose, like a strange sense of déjà vu, like you've lived that version of yourself, too. Maybe you'd even start second-guessing every little thing you do, overanalyzing your decisions, wondering which universe you're happiest in. But on the flip side, this could be kind of liberating. Imagine the freedom of knowing that every decision doesn't have to be perfect. You could take risks, knowing that if it doesn't work out, there's another version of you who made the safe choice. Feeling bad about an awkward interaction? Don't worry, there's a version of you living it up in a completely different social scene. Did you quit your job and start that business? Don't sweat it. There's another you still doing the corporate grind, happy in their own way. It'd be like having a backup version of yourself in a parallel universe. You could live your life with more courage, less regret, and an extra dose of curiosity about where those other versions of you are. You could test out new ideas, try new things, and never worry too much about the outcome. No matter what happens, there's always another universe where the alternate choice was made. You wouldn't feel the weight of failing, because in one universe you succeeded. But then again, this could become a bit of a nightmare. Imagine the confusion of realizing how many versions of yourself are out there, each one experiencing a different version of reality. What if you came across an alternate you who was incredibly successful, living the life you always dreamed of, and they could have been you? What if you saw a version of yourself who's living the perfect life, but you know that your decisions didn't lead you down that path? Would you ever be truly happy with your life, knowing that in another universe, you could have been something else? Would it leave you constantly wanting more, searching for the better version of yourself in every new decision you make? The potential for dissatisfaction could grow endlessly, because there would always be that haunting question, what if? What if there's a universe where everything worked out just a little bit differently? What if your other self is living a perfect life and you missed out on it? In the end, living in a world where every decision you make creates an alternate universe would probably force you to rethink how you make choices. The weight of possibility would be too overwhelming to ignore, and you'd constantly be faced with the question, does the other me live a better life? Or is it just a reminder that the grass is always greener in a parallel universe? Either way, one thing's for sure, no decision would ever feel small again. So how would you handle it? Would you embrace the chaos? Or would you try to find peace knowing there's an infinite number of versions of you out there, living out every possibility? Let me know your thoughts in the comments because honestly, I'm dying to know how you deal with the ultimate what if.